Rupesh, good morning.
Hey, hi, Chetan. Good morning to you.
Hey, you. For you, sorry, it's a good afternoon.
No, that's okay. Fine. This kind, fine, no issue for me.
So let's start.
You supposed to share me that link, no, yesterday, some related to
The
waterfall,
product,
that that triangular.
yeah, yeah. I
Actually,
will.
I
I'll
was
send.
okay.
Hmm?
I was actually going through YouTube for that link, but I didn't. I mean, for that video, but I didn't
I'll
go.
email you today. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
sure.
kept it as an assignment. So just curious, like on the during the weekdays, you just you said you would do something, right? You work.
No, I don't work.
Okay, so you kind of just you have enough time to kind of do a lot of things, right?
Exactly, exactly. That's what I wanted to utilize the time.
Okay,
So,
okay.
and
So we can.
mhm.
If
Yeah,
we
sure.
can do one of the, in one of the weekdays, we can do that as well, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
anytime. I mean, you let me know your availability accordingly. I mean, we can have the session.
yeah,
No issues.
because if you have some time, then definitely we can do that.
Yes, yes, yes. I do have time as well because now then, till now I have nothing in hand. No, that's what. No
Mm-hmm.
job, nothing. So,
So what I can do is, lunchtime. When I have a lunchtime, we can have a session.
okay, okay,
So
sure.
that will be what, like 4 your time or 5 maybe.
Okay, evening, fine. I
Yeah,
mean, that's what I see. I will be always flexible. You
right.
just let me know about I mean your availability. Accordingly, I will come online.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, so I think let's do that because sometimes if I have um, a lunch time, we can do at least 1 or 2 sessions in the week. I think that
Mhm.
will be that can help, right?
Sure,
We
sure.
can
Yeah.
go much faster then.
Yes, yes, that's what actually. So once we go faster, then I can also start applying for
Right.
early.
Okay.
That will be good for me as well. That's
Hmm.
why.
Okay. Good.
And yeah, and one more thing about this videos. I mean, you're supposed to share with me.
Yeah, I did that
How?
yesterday. So one second, let me send you that link in case if you don't have.
I mean to say, I don't know how to, access and how, I
Okay.
mean, just, I'm not at all familiar with it. That's why.
So see, I'm sharing my screen.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for you, this will be the main page.
Yeah.
So all the recorded sessions will be here. Actually, I need to post it here, but let me
Okay.
do that. Just do it right now.
It's like how I'm, planning to study, like going through each and every of your session and trying to make a note of it so that, try to use the same kind of understanding and same kind of language while giving an interview. So that will be a good for me. I mean, and I will be very comfortable by that way.
Definitely. So I'm posting it here,
Oh, sure.
and you should have received one email from me, which has a link to this session. Did you check
Uh,
your email?
no,
Yesterday night I did that.
is it so? But let me check. Hold on.
Yeah,
Uh,
let me know. Otherwise, I need to see what happened to the email I sent.
oh, wait, I'm just checking.
It should be from actually Google.
Uh, is it okay? Okay, okay. I was checking from your name by your name only. Uh, what could you tell me the subject line, or I mean,
Okay, let me do it again. No issues.
yeah,
Wait.
please. Yes,
Okay.
yes. That will
I'll send
be
it right
that will
now.
be good. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, no issues.
And you please do let me know also, I mean, what all changes I have to do in myself as well,
Yeah,
to become a good Scrum Master, or like how I have to communicate, any kind of improvement do I have to make while communicating, or any communication gap or any clarity. I mean, whatever you feel, you please be open to, share with me, so that it will be good for my, you know,
sure, sure, definitely. I'll do that. Your
yeah,
comm skills are pretty good, so that is a very plus point, because if comm skills are not up to mark, then it's hard to build that skill, right, overnight.
yeah, that's what, right. I mean,
But okay, hey, your email is rupesh underscore p underscore survey at yahoo.com,
yes, right,
right?
that's right.
Do you have a Gmail?
Yes, I do have Gmail.
What is that?
Uh, Hold on. I generally won't use it. It's surveyrupesh03 at gmail.com.
SURVE survey. So one word,
RUPS.
right?
Yeah, it
So
is. It is continuous.
survey
Continuous word.
rupesh
Zero
underscore.
three.
Oh,
No, no,
zero.
there is no underscore at all. Continuous. No space. Surveyrupesh03 at gmail.com.
Okay. So I'm sending you on both Yahoo and Gmail. Gmail is preferred because it's a Google product, right? So it works very
Uh-huh.
well with Gmail.
Oh, okay,
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 now
okay.
check if you received it.
Yes, yes, I have received it. Right. Yeah.
Okay, so if you click on that, it's going to open that video, the same which you are seeing here.
Okay, okay,
So this I thought we did, right. We did this walkthrough on this training portal, right? Yeah. So this
yes,
is
yes,
your main page where all the sessions will be posted.
yes,
So
yes.
yesterday's session is here, and today's session will be on the same page. If you
Okay.
keep scrolling down, it will you will see all the sessions we had.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, so let's get started. So Rupesh, what I want is let's take 10-15 minutes, and I want you to just write down. It can be bullet points, right? It doesn't have to be very long, lengthy sentence.
Mm-hmm.
Take all the roles in the STLC and define what their responsibilities are on a project. Yesterday we talked, right? PM, project manager, then business
Yes.
analyst, uh,
Mm-hmm.
architect, developer, tester.
Yes, yes.
Just take 10-15 minutes, write down in a bullet points, and then we can go from there.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
Sure. I mean, if you want, I can tell you right away, like, I mean, while speaking itself. Or
Okay.
you want me to write? Or you want me to write, then
Yeah, I
both
think
will.
just put it in a bullet points,
Sure.
right? As much as you can think, and
Okay,
then
okay,
we can have a quick review.
okay, okay.
Okay.
Definitely. Sure, sure.
Okay.
Okay, okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm putting a timer. Let's give 15 minutes should be enough, right?
Okay, okay. Sure, sure. Yeah, okay. I'll start writing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
Okay.
Yeah, Rupesh, I'm here.
Yeah, I have also completed.
Oh, done. Okay.
Yeah, done.
Okay. So can you share what you have done?
Yes, sure.
I
So
can.
we'll
I can. Have you written down or you just?
I have written down in my notepad. Notepad in the sense my normal notepad, not in
Okay.
laptop.
So let me. Oh, not on the laptop.
Yes, yes, I have
Physical.
written. I write down on my paper. Oh,
Okay. Okay.
if
No
you want, I
issues.
would
Yeah.
have done it in
That's fine.
notepad also.
That's fine. Yeah. Tell me. So just quickly explain what you have done.
Sure. So we will start with product manager.
Okay.
Uh, so he knows about product and he
Mm-hmm.
owns the product and he manages product development. He plans how product is going to be built and deliver. So he basically part of planning phase. Then a business analyst help him out. So he collect and study product requirement and he present it to product manager,
Okay.
business analyst. And once it is confirmed, then okay. And one more thing, business analyst does why for collecting information, he uh, contact to all those SMEs. I mean, subject matter experts in that particular field, also architectures, in order to get and analyze the product and whether the requirement are as per the customer's expectations or not. Okay.
Right.
Then then comes he finally once it is finalized, then it will go to architecture. So
Architect.
he is yeah,
Architect.
sorry. Oh, so sorry. It
Yeah.
will go to architect. Okay. So
Yeah.
he is like he will decide all technical specifications, like
Okay.
which kind of language we are going to use for develop particular product, or any internal connections or anything like that, or any required license if any required. Okay, so all that things he check. Then once it is confirmed, it will go to next phase, which is of development. So developers will work on it, and developers will do the product. I mean, they will develop the product. Okay, and whatever inputs they need, they will get it from architect itself. So architect, okay, architect.
Yeah.
Then they on their front they do unit testing. Okay,
Yeah.
uh, that the type of testing is also called as white testing.
White box.
White box, sorry, okay, white box. Then finally it will go to tester. So tester will do black box testing, and in that he will uh, test the product whether it is as per customer requirement or not. And if he find any defects, again he will send it back to developer. So like that, once it is done, then finally it get delivered to customer. I mean into production.
Correct. Okay. Good. And once it's in production, what do we do then? After that,
I think testing is all. No? Once it is done in testing, then we will deliver it to production. So in
yes.
production, there will be
Uh,
a support. Yeah.
yeah. So once it's in production, it's we have to maintain it, right? So it will be uh, operations from that point onwards.
Yes, right. The operation support will be there, and once the product is, I mean, that product is no longer part of business, it become obsolete. In that case, it went to final phase. In that
Correct.
phase,
Yeah.
we will cancel that. I mean to say, we totally shut down that product itself,
Application.
like that
Correct. Got
application.
it.
Yeah.
Okay. Just one thing. Uh, just make it like don't be gender uh, like he. You were saying okay, he, right? So just one small thing, make it gender neutral. So either you say he or she, or you just say that the tester will do this or the architect will do this. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
So these things are very small, but they have a pretty significant impact in the interview.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Okay.
Because I know there was a few years back, I was in a workshop where they were talking about all the interviewing skills. And the guy
Mhm.
who was training us, that person, he specifically said that, never be gender uh, specific when talking about, a scenario. Like, okay, if I know that my manager was a, male, then definitely you have to say he, right? Or female,
Mhm.
she. But let's say you are taking a hypothetical scenario, right?
Mhm.
So I would
Mhm.
not say he will do this and then he will do this and then the tester he is going to do this. Make sure that you kind of just use the term tester, or you can just say he or she kind of thing. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay. So it is always better to use a tester word.
Yeah, just use the generic term so
Tester
that you
or
don't have to
developer,
worry about. Correct.
product
Yeah.
manager like that. Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it may not seem to be very big thing, but definitely it leaves some bad impression when somebody is really very particular about those things, right?
Hmm.
Just make sure that you don't make that mistake.
Okay. Sure. Definitely. Definitely. All right.
But good, yeah. So you got pretty good idea on that.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I mean, it actually it was really interesting. I mean, I feel it is interesting also. Good.
Good, nice, thank you.
Yeah.
So let's continue from there. And today we'll talk about different frameworks, which you just need to know high level. You don't need to go get into the details of that. But yesterday we talked about the waterfall, right? Waterfall is what some people call it a plan driven or even predictive approach,
Okay.
because the reason why it's called plan driven or predictive, because
Because
we
the
plan
requirement is
things,
fixed. Yeah.
right? Requirements are fixed and we plan the whole project in advance. Okay,
Right.
we don't just plan for like 3 months, 6 months, and then we keep planning for the next period. We plan the whole project, and that is why it's known as plan driven or predictive, because we are trying to predict things which are going to happen in future, right? And based on
Yeah.
that predictions we are planning. But what the main issue with this waterfall model was the requirements. uh, the biggest assumption was that the requirements will be stable. That is, once the customer gives us the requirements, it's going to be stable, right? That was the biggest assumption those people made when building this framework. But seldom that's true, right? Um, Requirements will always change.
Hmm.
So, and there are different reasons why the requirements will change. It can be that SMEs or customers may decide to change their mind, or they may have a different compelling reason. Their competitors launched a product with a new feature and they want to add that feature, similar feature, into their own product. Like how we see always, like between Apple and Samsung, correct?
Hmm.
Or between let's say Microsoft and which is the other, Google, right? In the cloud
Right.
space, IBM. So they are all competing. So if one company will launch a new product, or even with an existing product, they add a new feature, definitely the other competitors will try to, do the same thing, right? They want to outcompete that company.
Right. They will try to overcome that feature.
Exactly. So there might be all these reasons why we say that the requirements will change, because there are other environmental factors which come into play. It can be governmental. There's a new law which was passed and we have to make sure that all the applications are compliant to that new law. It can be competing competitive factors coming into play, as we discussed, or it can be an internal reason, like the company decides to come up with an innovative approach, or their own department comes up with a new product or a new feature in the product. So whatever the reason, now the requirements will be changing, right? And
Hmm.
we discussed like yesterday, when the requirements change in a waterfall model, it has a cascading impact on the schedule, on the budget, right? So that was definitely, not going well with the IT industry. I mean, all the companies which were using waterfall model to implement the solutions,
Okay.
right? And the second biggest reason was that time to market, right? We talked about time to market. So in back in 60s, 70s, and 80s, it was. the IT was not that widespread, right? It was only with few limited companies they were using IT,
Hmm.
correct?
Right.
It was not this widespread which we are seeing today. Today, even you go with a, you go into a coffee shop, you go into a small, deli or anywhere, you will see software being used,
Right.
right? Even like you take a cab, they will have some app to kind of, do all their business, correct?
Right.
Imagine like 30 years back, it was all done manually on a piece of paper, or they were just using their, some other physical form to conduct their business.
Hmm.
So in those days, waterfall model was kind of, they were okay with that because the time to market was not that critical factor. As and when, companies started adopting IT more and more, they wanted to release the product much faster than they could using waterfall model.
Okay.
So around like 85, 1985, 90, the waterfall model uh, started to lose its, charm or popularity, and then came a different new frameworks which were, letting the companies release the product at short intervals without waiting for the whole project to be done.
Okay.
Okay, and they were based on two different principles. They are iterative and incremental.
Okay.
So around 90s, there was a new wave of SDLC frameworks which were based on these two principles, iterative and incremental. And this helped them to counter those two problems. One was changing requirements, and the second one was time to market.
Okay.
Okay. Now, what is iterative and what is incremental? Let's talk about that real quick,
Okay.
right? What is
Yeah.
iterative? What is iteration?
Iteration is like degradation, and incremental is like short parts, short things, and
Okay.
that's
So iterative is repeating,
okay. Okay.
right? When we say I want to do one iteration, that means I'm saying I want to do one round or one loop,
Okay.
one cycle.
Hmm.
Okay. So, for example, let's say you are on a stationary bike. So, what do? You do the, you move the paddle, right? You kind of
Right.
start doing the,
Pedal
moving the
increase.
paddle.
Right.
So that's like iterations. You're repeating the same thing again and again and again. Okay.
Okay.
And then comes the incremental, which means you are adding value with each iteration.
Okay. Okay. So in every cycle, every repetitive cycle, you are adding something extra.
Yes, you are adding some value to the product you are building.
Okay. So step by step, we are moving ahead. Like
Exactly. So let's compare. You're riding a bike and you are paddling it, correct? So each
okay.
paddle is iteration, but then with each iteration you are moving forward. You're adding
Right.
value, right? That is
Correct.
what the concept is: iteration and incremental approach, or iterative and incremental approach. Compare that with a stationary bike where you are doing iterations, but you are not going forward because it's a stationary bike. So
Correct.
you're not going forward. There's no value addition. Of course, you're burning calories. From that sense, definitely there's a value addition. But in our example, if you compare a moving bike versus stationary bike, with moving bike you're able to go from point A to point B, whereas using a stationary bike you won't be able to go to point B because it's stationary. In
Right.
right, in both cases you are doing iterations, but in the first one you're also adding some value to it because with each iteration you are moving forward, whereas in the second scenario you're not. Correct.
So yeah. So each iteration will have a fixed period of time as well.
That's correct, yes.
right?
From the IT
I mean,
perspective, definitely, yeah. Each iteration will have a set amount of time. So it can be, let's say in our example, every you will finish one paddle every 30 seconds or every 10 seconds, whatever the case is, right?
hmm, hmm,
And every time you move, you complete one cycle, you're adding value to it. You're moving maybe 10 feet apart, or I mean 10 feet ahead, or 15 feet ahead, or 5 feet ahead, whatever the case is, depending on the speed you are going.
hmm.
Okay, so all the new frameworks were built on these two principles, iterative and incremental, and it helped them or allowed them to be flexible in terms of changing requirements, and also accepting, or rather letting them release the product at short intervals, so they can improve the time to market uh, metrics there. So
Okay.
instead of waiting for the whole project to be complete, they were able to release the product in short, at short intervals, um, so that the customers can start using it. They don't have to wait for the whole project to be complete.
And that too, we are providing customer that minimum value product,
MVP, correct. MVP is
right?
very
We
important.
reached out,
Correct.
right? Yesterday you
Yeah,
told me. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay. I got it.
Okay.
Hmm.
So around 1990s, these frameworks became popular. Spiral, Rapid Application Development, and RUP.
Hmm.
Okay, all of these three, of course, you don't need to get into the details of what these are. We can quickly go through these if you want, but the main focus will be on Scrum, because we are training you for Scrum Master Product Owner job.
Sure.
Okay.
Right. Hmm.
Have you heard about these? Spiral,
Uh,
Rapid Application Development, RUP?
no, no, I never heard about these things. No.
Okay, I think we can go through it if you want,
Okay.
right? Because these will be on your resume, so you need to know what these terms are, right? Otherwise,
Okay.
you kind of, if they ask you, you might be in a fix what to say.
Okay. Okay. So it's like I'm going to say that I have worked on this model as well. Or
No,
uh,
you can just say that, I have knowledge on these, but you have worked on
on agile.
waterfall and agile, yes.
Okay. Okay.
And
Agile. So agile is not a framework, right?
I
Scrum
mean,
is a framework.
agile, within the agile environment, yes. Scrum is a framework. Within agile, you have different frameworks like Scrum, Kanban, DSDM, FDD, feature driven development.
If
Uh,
I mean to say. Uh,
yeah,
okay. Okay. I got it. I got it. I got it. Okay. Sure. Understood.
yeah. What's your confusion? You
No, no,
can.
I was actually a little confused about, waterfall and then Scrum and then Agile. I was actually thinking about these three terminologies and I was a bit confused among them. Now, finally, I got some clarity that Agile, I mean, Scrum and waterfall are what these are the frameworks,
Correct.
and waterfall is sorry, Agile is nothing but kind of a methodology. Right? I mean to say.
Agile, no, agile is like a concept. It's a thought process. It's a concept. Okay, and within agile, you have different types of frameworks. You have, as I said, FDD, feature driven development, DSDM, which is dynamic systems development methodology. Then you have the Scrum, Kanban, Crystal. So all of these are different frameworks, but they have the same principle of agile. Now, if I ask you what is agile, in very simple words, it is nothing but what we discussed. Getting the customer feedback early in the process, right? By demonstrating a working software, correct?
Hmm.
That is one. So that you can evolve the product based on the customer needs. That is one. And second thing is letting them release the product. at short intervals using the concept of MVP. Okay,
Okay.
these two are the basic principles of Agile. Now, within the Agile, there are different ways or different frameworks you can do it. And as I said,
Okay.
there are all these 6, 7 frameworks which are very popular. Um,
Mhm.
but out of that, Scrum and Kanban is the one we'll be focusing on.
Okay. So these are models which now you are sharing with me, the spiral model and some other model, RUP and all. So they are not a part of Agile,
No, they
right?
are not. Yeah, they
Okay.
are not. They were one step before Agile came into picture,
Yes. Okay.
right? They were in between the waterfall and Agile.
So these frameworks are I mean, it's like for Scrum methodology is Agile. So uh, for this spiral and all these frameworks, which methodology are they using? Like, are they using waterfall or I mean
No, these two,
something?
iterative and incremental.
Okay, okay,
Okay, so
okay, okay,
what happened was after waterfall model, these came into picture, and different companies were using different frameworks. Some spiral, rapid application development, RAP, and there were many more, which were not even I've mentioned here, but they were like a lot of them, which were used by other companies, but they never gained the traction to kind of go beyond a certain domain. Like, for example, some companies were using their own custom SDLC frameworks, okay, but they were never popular outside of their company. Like,
okay,
for example, let's say GE, they had their own way of doing things, but it was only within GE, right? If you go outside of GE, nobody talked about that framework. So those we call custom frameworks. But these are the ones which were popular within the industry, and they were built on these two principles, iterative and incremental. So they were not totally agile, but they had some elements of agile.
okay, okay, okay.
Okay.
Hmm.
Start. Hold on one second. So let's start with spiral. I think let's finish this today, right? Because it's on your resume. I think you should know these things.
Yes, right, right. I will have to. I should have. I mean, I should be aware with this. At least
Yeah.
something.
Because anything on your resume, if you're not comfortable, that's not good, right?
Correct.
So let's talk about these. That's fine. As I said, maybe we can do one session in the weekday
Yes, yes,
during my
yes.
lunch time, so that we can.
Yeah, that will be actually great of you. I mean, you're, I mean, really helping a lot because out of the way you're going and teaching me that
No,
too.
thank you. See, ultimately,
But
if you are,
in lunchtime you will teach me, then how can you have your lunch then? I mean,
I mean, I can manage it. 10, 15
okay.
minutes before I can start, finish my lunch, and then we can do it.
Yeah, yeah.
We have
Okay. Oh,
kind of, good environment, work environment, so it's not like somebody's micromanaging
oh,
people.
oh.
So we are pretty good on that.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So yeah. Okay. So spiral model is one of the frameworks which was popular back in 90s, but not anymore. Okay. So it's pretty easy the way it is laid out, the way it is. So there are four quadrants: one, two, as you can see, three, and four. Right. So the first one, determine objectives, identify. The second one is identify and resolve the risk. Third one is development and testing. Fourth one is plan the next iteration. Now I'll explain you in a way which is pretty easy, and the the key points of this framework. Okay, right at the intersection where these two lines intersect, that is when we start the spiral, right? We start the project.
Okay.
Now, in this whole framework, in the spiral framework, there are two things which are important. One is the risk analysis, and the second one is prototyping. These two things are the key elements of this spiral framework.
Okay.
Okay. Now, let's talk about the risk analysis and prototyping before we go and understand this framework. So, what is a risk?
Uh, Risk is like in terms of it's like suppose we wanted to pursue anything or we wanted to accomplish any kind of activity or any kind of target we wanted to achieve.
Hmm.
So we we cal we follow certain steps, we follow certain instructions. So for that we can say as a risk sort of, we take that risk and we complete that activity, we pursue that
Okay.
goal. So it can be a calculated risk or it can be any kind of, I mean, we are while doing that, for doing that XYZ thing, we are doing calculations, how it can be done, accomplish what we need to do, how it can be easily achieved. Okay. Or
Hmm.
else sometimes we, even without thinking, even without doing any kind of calculations, we blindly jump into it. So it can be like that. I mean, I'm just sharing my
Right.
understanding.
Right. Right.
So
No, no, that's exactly what I want. See, a risk, yes. So a risk is like technically the way we think about risk is some sort of uncertain event, right? Some sort of uncertainty, correct?
okay. Yeah.
Um, and which can have a positive or negative impact. Now, most of the times we think about negative, right? Let's say a very simple example is, you go to a theme park, correct? And there's a like a bungee jumping um, there,
Hmm.
and you go there. What do you feel? You feel a risk. You see there's a risk there, correct?
Yes, definitely.
Now, what happens if that thing comes out and you fall? That's a
Right,
risk,
right. Yes,
correct?
exactly.
So risk
Yes.
is nothing but
Hmm.
an uncertain event that can happen, uh, and that can have a negative impact on that,
Okay.
right? Risk can
Okay.
also be can also bring some positive impact. Like the same thing, in that example, you go for the ride. The positive thing is you will get that, feel, right? When you do
Hmm.
it, you will feel proud about yourself. Hey, I did the bungee jumping, and you will feel cool. You will feel confident, things like that. Negative side is it may not have a good experience. It may come out, fall, injuries, or it can just lead to some other issues, whatever. Correct? Let's say
Right.
you buy a stock market. I mean, you buy a stock from the secondary market.
Hmm.
Let's say you bought a stock for XYZ company, right? You bought
Hmm.
$10. I mean, you bought, let's say, 100 shares for $10. So basically, you invested $1,000 in the stock. So the risk is there, right? The risk is you can lose all your $1,000, or you can make millions out of it,
Right.
correct? So risk is nothing but an uncertain event that's going to happen, right, in future, and that may have a positive or negative impact on you, or on your project. So we cannot just do these projects or build solutions without taking care of the risk, right? If I know that there's a risk out there, I need to take some action on it. I need to have a plan of action that if the risk happens, I need to do this,
Correct.
correct? Let's say in the stock market, the risk is that you may lose all $1,000. Now, you will definitely think about it. How do I minimize my risk? How can I negate the risk? Sometimes, there are different strategies of managing risk. You can either negate it, that means you can totally avoid it. You can reduce the impact, you can transfer it, or you can accept it. You will say, okay, I have a pretty high risk for, I have a pretty high appetite for risk. I will accept it. Worst case what? I will lose $1,000, correct?
Correct.
That is accepting. The second thing is avoiding the risk. That means you will say, okay, I don't want to lose any money. So the moment I see any fall in the price, even like 10 cents, $1, I will sell it. So I don't,
Oh,
I
okay. So
won't
you will
lose
not.
much,
Right, right,
right?
right. You can minimize the impact of risk. I mean,
Right,
loss.
correct. Or
Okay.
you can avoid it. You can say that, okay, I don't like to take risk. I don't even want to buy this stock. I'll go for mutual fund. I'll go for bonds, which are
Yeah,
pretty
long-term
stable,
investment. Right.
right? So there are different strategies. So what I'm saying is, any risk you have on the project, you can't just uh, have a risk and not have a risk mitigation plan, right? It's like, uh, you have let's say, a building, and you don't plan for the 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 fire hazard when the fire happens, correct? You need to have that whole plan in place. You need to have the drills, you need to have the fire extinguisher and everything in the right place, in the right order, and people must be trained. So in the case when the actual problem or the actual fire happens, they know how to handle it,
Right.
correct? So
Mm,
similar to that, the risk mitigation plan is same to what the example I gave, the fire preparation or the fire hazard preparation. So
okay.
that is one thing. In a spiral model, we need to make sure that we'll keep looking for the risks and have a risk mitigation plan in place, so that in case if the risk happens, you can take care of it. You can make sure that it doesn't impact you in a negative way,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
That is one. The second thing about the spiral model is prototyping. Now, prototyping is creating a blueprint of the solution you're building.
Okay.
Okay. Prototype is, you might have heard about, like, it's not a real product, it's a prototype.
It's like imaginary, hypothetical sort of thing, I mean to say. Or
It's not, like, I wouldn't say it's imaginary. It's a blueprint of an actual product you are going to build. So let's say you are going to build a smartphone. Okay.
mm,
So without investing a lot of resources, you want to just come up with how it's going to look like, right? It won't have that operating system, it won't have the brain behind it, but just the look and feel, how it's going to look like it.
okay.
Like a lot of times, not a lot actually, every time there's a new car uh, made by a company, right? What they do is they don't start building it on the assembly line and then see how it looks like, right? What they do is they first design it, they first create a prototype, and then they make changes to it, and then they do the engineering, and then it goes into the actual production.
Okay.
Okay. Same thing with a software. You can do a prototype on a software so that you can visualize how it's going to look like.
Hmm. Okay.
Okay. And a prototype can be of two different types. One is a high fidelity and a low fidelity. So a low fidelity prototype it's like pretty raw in nature. It's like, you know, it's what do you say is, it won't give you exactly all the details that's going to be in the final product, but it gives you a good sense of impression what that system will look like, what all features it will be on that, what all features will be on that page, how the navigation will take place, all of that, right? That's a low fidelity prototype. A high fidelity prototype is, you know, as close as you can get to the actual application, to the actual software. So let me open one example that will help you.
Okay. Just sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
You are you getting any disturbances from mine? Because what happened? I'm staying here in High Street, so around at on this street, all shops are there.
Oh, I hear some. Is it
Yes,
like a namaz?
yes, they are singing the sound out. Song outside. I have actually closed all windows and everything, but still the
What
sound
is
is
that?
coming.
It's like a what? Azan?
Yeah, sorry?
Is it like
No,
a
no,
that
no.
from the
It is
mosque?
not like that. They are. It is just like for entertainment. They are sing a song like like a
Okay,
live
okay,
performance sort of things are always keep happening here outside,
okay,
huh,
okay, okay.
like that. So
That's
I'm
okay.
really sorry for that. That it
No,
is
no, I'm
getting
not
disturbance.
disturbing.
Yeah, I was about to tell you before, but you were like in the
No,
middle.
that's okay.
Yeah,
That's fine.
sorry for that. Yeah,
See, I'm talking about. Let me share.
yeah. You're supposed to share some example.
Yeah. See, the low fidelity is this one. As you can see on the left, that's a low fidelity, right? It gives you a pretty good sense of how that screen is going to look like, you know, where the logo will be, where the label will be, all of that. But the high fidelity is more real, right? It is much uh, closer to how that actual application will look like. See, there's like, it doesn't have the colors, right? Low fidelity, it has a color. If you see the text, you know, it's just a kind of a blob there. We are being more specific, right? So you can see
Mhm.
there's a difference, right? It's like a, you know, think about it, black and white versus a color picture,
Yes,
right?
right. But
Same
yes,
thing. You know, in good old days, you had the black and white picture, which were, you know,
yeah,
didn't capture all the details. Whereas a
exactly.
color picture would be, oh wow, it's a color thing, right? It used to be a big thing back then,
Yes, much more clear. Correct.
right? So that is what the low fidelity versus high fidelity is.
Okay.
And low fidelity, you know, it's generally the BA can create low fidelity wireframes, but high fidelity wireframes need some more specific expertise. Like for example, you need to have a UI UX knowledge, user interface, user experience knowledge. You must know a little bit of coding, like, you know, HTML, CSS, JavaScripting, those kind of things, right? I mean, these days there are many tools through which you can also create a high fidelity wireframes, but you know, generally, a business analyst would be creating a low fidelity wireframes.
Okay.
Okay. Any question on these two terms?
No, I understood about it. Low fidelity and high fidelity. I got it. Yeah. Okay. So, but again, all both things are being developed done by developers itself, right? Or I mean to say,
Okay, yeah. Now let's get, yeah.
or is it from planning? Is it a part of planning or or some?
Correct. Yeah. So what happens is here we start this right in the middle, right? And as you come out, there will be some requirement sessions with the SMEs, right? And
Mhm.
then these things, I think, don't worry about these concept of operations, requirements plan. These are artifacts which are created as we go along. But the key takeaway from this, what I mean, this framework is once we do the requirements elicitation, right, then we have to think about the risk. What are the risks involved in doing this project? A risk can be technical risk, it can be non-technical risk. A technical risk can be, hey, based on this requirement, um, how can we, or let's say we have a requirement to send the data to an external system. Then the risk can be, uh, the data getting hacked by hackers, right? If I'm
Right.
sending some personal information like a social security or some customer data which has got all their personal information over the web, I have a risk there, right? The risk is that my data can be leaked or somebody can breach into our system and get the data, right? So that's a risk. How do we mitigate that risk, right? That's a technical risk. Non-technical risk can be, let's say, we don't have enough funding to go forward, or we don't have access to SMEs, or for example, the requirements are changing very frequently, and because of that, we don't have clarity. Any of those things can be also a risk, right? So we need to think about the risk as we go forward. Every time we come to this point, we need to make sure that we do the risk analysis. Any new risk, we need to document in a document called risk register.
Okay.
Okay. So any risk, it will reside in a risk register. And who maintains that risk register? Everybody. Even though the PM is the has a sole responsibility of maintaining and updating it, but any person on the project who thinks there's a risk, they can go and add it in the risk register.
Okay.
Okay. So there might be existing risk which we need to think about, right? So there can be a risk which we already identified and it's there, but we are tracking it to make sure that the risk is still a risk. It's not turned into an issue. Okay, so we when the risk is not materialized, we still call it a risk. Okay, but the moment the risk is materialized, it's no longer a risk. It's an issue. It's a problem.
Materialize in the sense it comes into,
Happens,
it happens.
right? Like for
Okay.
example, let's say you're going from your home to office, and your let's say the tire pressure is low. It's indicating that it's low, correct? The risk is you may have a flat tire, right? The risk is there. But if
Right.
you are able to reach your office or garage to get the air filled, then the risk was only a risk. It didn't materialize. It didn't happen. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
So in this example, the risk is that you may have a flat tire, right? What is your risk mitigation plan? Maybe to go to the
So,
nearest gas station and get the air filled, or to have a what do you call an extra tire in case if that happens, you can change it,
okay.
correct? Or
Yes.
you don't take the car at all. You take a different car.
Okay.
But let's say you decide to take the car and you don't want to go and fix the issue right away because let's say you have an urgent meeting in the office. You decide I will take the risk. I'll go to the office and then take care of it in the evening. Now you start and let's say after like 5 miles, you get a flat tire. Now the risk is no longer a risk. It's an issue,
Right. Right.
right? It turned into an issue. And now you need to think about what do I do? Your risk mitigation plan will help you now. If the
Okay.
risk happens, then I will do this. So whatever you decided, you will do that. You'll change the tire, or you will call your friend to kind of give you a ride, whatever it is,
Right.
right?
Okay. Hmm.
So you do the risk analysis in the first. See, this is the first iteration. Okay, you come here, you do this first pass, you do
Hmm.
the risk analysis, and the team will do the prototyping,
Hmm.
correct? And again, you do the requirements. The team will create some artifacts. They do the risk analysis, prototyping, and
mm.
again they do this. They verify and validate all the requirements. Again, they do the risk analysis, prototyping, and once the customer decides or
Uh,
they give the,
yeah, sorry, just I do prototype in the sense I didn't get what exactly I do here. It's
so
like every time I'm keep on creating that
refining,
print.
updating.
Okay,
So
so do I have to every time I have to create this low and this high fidelity? I mean,
not you, somebody
in
from
every
the team
build.
will. Yeah, if
Okay,
you're a scrum master, you don't have to create anything of this, right?
no,
You're
no,
not
no.
doing.
Okay, okay, no, no. I'm just talking about this spiral model only. I mean to say,
Yes,
as you said, suppose I'm doing one iterative. Okay,
one iteration.
sorry, one iteration. So obviously, I will have some two uh, what that fidelity, right? Low and high will be
Low fidelity.
created.
You can either create low or high. You don't need to create both.
Okay, okay. Okay, okay, okay. I had a thought in my mind that every iteration we have to create both fidelity and
No, no,
we have to put in, extra incremental inputs in that print. So finally, you will have a exact picture like that. I was thinking.
no. You can just go with either low or high. Now,
Okay.
imagine that we start the project, we do the risk analysis, right? And anybody can do the risk analysis. It's not only the PM responsibility. It can be BA, it can be tester, developer.
Yes.
Anybody who can see a risk can contribute towards that.
Hmm.
The prototyping is mainly done by either a BA or there's a person called a UI UX analyst or a developer. So user interface, user experience. These are the people who specialize in creating the wireframes. Some people also call it mockups. Okay, whether it's a low fidelity, high fidelity, they're expert in that because they have that knowledge uh, of the human and machine interaction. Right.
Okay.
The basic essence of this job is how to make a user life easy. Right. How do you make the end user lives easy so that they can use the application in the most easy manner. It's intuitive, it's easy to navigate, it's easy to use and operate, and it, it leaves a good impression on a user. That is the goal of a UI UX person.
Okay.
Imagine, I think the best example is Apple. Apple products are known for its UI or UX,
Okay.
right?
Right.
I mean, hardly there's any person who will say that Apple products are hard to use,
Right.
right? I mean, every person they are they when they use Apple products, the first thing they say is it's cool, correct? And the
Hmm.
reason behind that is not because of the operating system or not because of the code that's working, because the way it has been designed and laid out.
Okay.
That is what the UI UX is all about.
Okay.
Think about it. Any application which you used and you felt that, oh man, this is really cool application to use.
Yes. So it is okay. So it will definitely have a good user interface UI.
Yeah, which one was that? Think about it and tell me. Any application which you felt that, any application should be like this, so easy to use, it's so attractive, so, intuitive.
Okay. It's like for me, I mean, see, I have two email address, Yahoo and Gmail.
Mhm.
But for me, Yahoo, I feel is very good and comfortable for me, and I feel very easy to operate mails, to draft mails or like. But in compared to Gmail, it is little bit difficult actually. That's what is my opinion. I mean, even if you wanted to find attachments also, you won't be able to find attachment easily in Gmail. But if you see in Yahoo, you will get a clear picture of it.
Mhm. Okay,
So I think it is quite good.
right. So that is exactly what we are talking, right? So a UI UX person or a BA will be responsible for creating the prototype. So in the first pass, they create a prototype. It goes for review verification. And again, in the second pass, we do the risk analysis, make sure that there are no new risks, or if there are, we add them, or if existing risks are complete, we can close them, or the ones which are there, we can just keep monitoring them.
Okay.
Okay. And then it depends on how many iterations you need. You may need one, two, three, or four. Now, in this example, we have only three, but you may need more. Okay, it totally depends on how many you need. So if your customer says, okay, this looks good and we are good to go, and that point
Mhm.
of time, you can see it's now a waterfall model, right? The design, coding, testing, and then deployment. Everything will be done as per the waterfall model. So up until this point, until the prototypes are reviewed and approved, we have to iterate, keep iterating. You do
Okay.
the
Okay.
requirements, you do the review with the customers, you do the risk analysis, and you do the prototyping.
Okay.
And once
Okay.
the prototypes are reviewed and approved by the customer, from that point onwards, we get into a waterfall mode.
Got it. Okay. Got it. Okay. So this is also quite cool because in each and every iteration, we have a communication with the customer, and
Right?
customer requirements. I mean, new requirements of customers. Like in here, incremental, right? As if iterative plus incremental new requirements, so we can easily cover those requirements as well. So there will be a good customer satisfaction,
Correct.
and doing that we can save time and money, and we can gain customer trust as well.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So finally, when customer conclude that we are, I mean, okay with this product, then we will close that, I mean, iterative iteration, and we will come with the waterfall.
Correct.
So we can do normal detail change, design code, everything.
Right.
Okay. So it is always better to start iteration with the what low mitigation, what that low fatality, and by the
Low
time
fidelity.
we yes,
Mhm.
and by the time we got confirmation from customer, we
Mhm.
can convert that into, I mean, we can, we can have a high fatality at the exact product, and then
Yeah, I mean, you can do that, as long as, there's a time factor, because you also have to think about the time factor, right? Because creating high fidelity requires some more time, and also need a person with that skill set. So if you have that person, then definitely you can make use of that person and create a high fidelity, because you will be able to present uh, more facts and more details on a high fidelity as compared to low fidelity.
okay, okay, got it, got it.
Right.
Yeah. So from interviews point of view, I just complete all this spiral model in one, or I mean 2 to 3 sentence maximum.
Yeah.
Like with continuous iterative, we are doing this part. Okay,
Correct.
okay, I got it. Okay.
Right. So that's your spiral model. Okay, this one is, the next one is RAD, which is Rapid Application Development. Now this is actually, a lot of people, and I've read in a lot of places that RAD is considered to be where the first form of agile development happened. Even though it is not considered within the agile framework, but rapid application development is considered to be the first SDLC framework which has all the elements of agile.
Okay.
Okay. And again, I think if I'm not mistaken, RAD was introduced back in, I think, 80s or so. Um, I think yes, 1980s. I don't exactly recollect when, but as I said, a lot of papers and a lot of articles, they claim that the first SDLC framework which has all the elements of agile is rapid application development.
Okay.
Now, what exactly it is? The name itself tells you, rapid application development, right?
Hmm. So very
So,
quickly we are creating development,
exactly,
right? Okay.
right? The name itself is RAD. People call it RAD. Also, I've heard some people call it RAB, which is rapid application building development. They mean the same thing.
Okay. Okay.
Now, let's understand what exactly it is. So, there are four different elements of rapid application development. Okay, one is the planning and requirements, as you can see on the top. The second one is the design, the user design. They call it user design, but it's basically prototyping. Okay. The third one is construction, and the fourth one is cutover.
Okay.
Now, what exactly it is? That these four phases, they are not done in sequence, but rather these are done simultaneously or concurrently. A lot of these phases.
Hmm.
Okay, so let's imagine that we need to build a new product. We need to build a new software, and we are using rapid application development framework.
Hmm.
So there will be a small team. This doesn't have like a huge team. When we are following a rapid application development, we just go with a very small team, and typically they don't have any roles defined for each person. So let's say we have 4-member team. Uh, that means these 4 people will be working with the customer to build the product. We don't specifically say that this guy is a PM, this guy is a BA, this guy is a developer and tester. They are all team, part of a team.
Hmm. Okay.
Okay,
So it's like
but
four individuals, but they don't have any kind of designations, just four
I
individuals
mean,
as a group.
right? It's not compartmentalized. Like in the waterfall, you have every specific person has a very
Particular
defined.
responsibilities, roles,
Exactly,
responsibilities, right?
right? So here we keep it more fluid and more open.
Hmm.
So this framework, it advocates less planning, right, and more emphasis on building a working software.
Okay.
Okay, and one more thing, this approach is preferable, or is preferred rather, when you have an application which has a very heavy UI, user interface. Okay, now let's say you are trying to build a product like Indeed or Monster.com or MakeMyTrip.com. It is all UI driven, right? These days everything is UI driven. So if you have an application which has a UI, intensive UI, then definitely this model was used. But there are applications which don't have a UI, right? They run on the back end. Then this application may not be the best. I mean, this approach may not be the best to follow.
Okay.
The reason being, they don't focus more on planning and requirements. Yes, they do spend some time on planning and getting some high level requirements, but then they focus on the design, creating the wireframes or prototypes for the customer. So as you can see in the user design, they kind of come up with all the design, all the prototypes, whether it's a low fidelity, high fidelity, whatever the case is,
Mm-hmm.
right? They will work with the customer to define those prototypes.
Okay.
Right? So in the design phase, uh, the team will work with the customer to create a prototype, in an iterative fashion, iterative and incremental fashion. Like for example, the RAD team will work with the end user or SMEs and build these prototypes.
Mm-hmm.
The prototypes can be, low fidelity or high fidelity.
Okay.
Okay, then comes the construction phase where the actual software will be written, the code will be written in the software, in the construction phase. And now these two phases will go hand in hand, the design phase and the construction phase. So based on the design, the developer will write the code and they will get the feedback from the customer. If the customer says, yes, this looks good, they will keep continuing with the coding. If they want to make changes, again, they will have to update the wireframes. They again go back, they review it with them, and again update the code. Right. So
Okay.
this is where the key uh, part of this framework is. The design and the development will go hand in hand,
Okay. Okay.
and you will need multiple iterations of these until the customer.
Hello.
Yeah,
Hello. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. No. No. You stop now in between. That's why. Yeah. Until the customer.
Okay, okay. So is that clear?
Yes. 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 So
What
design and
happens in? Okay,
development, they work together.
correct.
Okay.
And in the cutover
And
phase, the focus will be on. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, that's what. Once that so in design, it will there will be always new suggestions or new inputs by customer, right? That, I mean, new
Yeah, of
requirements
course.
from
Yes,
customer, right? And accordingly they will
yes.
understood that. Okay, and they will give it to again development team, and development team will work on it, right? And finally it will go
Yeah,
to customer
right,
like that.
right.
Okay. Okay.
Actually, here, the developers work directly with the customer. So, as I said, let's say you are a developer, I'm a developer, right?
Mm-hmm.
I will, let's say we both work with the customer, and in the
Mm-hmm.
meeting, I will say, hey, these are the prototypes we came up with. Can you please, take a look at it and give us a feedback?
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
if it looks good, we will write the code so that it exactly match the the wireframes prototype. Okay,
Wireframe is what? I mean,
it's the same thing, prototype.
it is prototype, just
Yeah,
like a blueprint.
people use different terms like mockups, wireframes. They kind of mean the same. Uh, so yeah, let's say we both are developer. We work with the customer. The customer sees the wireframes or mockups. They give us the feedback, and based on that, we write the code. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
And then we have the cutover phase where the focus will be mainly on quality assurance, testing, okay? Because we need to test the code, right?
Okay, so
We can't
cutover is nothing but like testing.
testing plus there are a few more things. One is definitely the testing. We have to test the code, right? So testing is main thing here. Second thing is data migration. Let's say we have a legacy application which has a data. I want to move the data from the legacy application into this new application which we are building. Correct?
Legacy application is like an old application you
Old
introduce.
application. Yes, correct.
Oh, okay, I got it.
Right? So from the legacy application, there is a data. Of course, you don't want to just discard the data.
Hmm.
So you want to pull the data and put it in the new system. Correct?
Hmm.
So you will have to think about that. How do you migrate the data from the legacy application into the new application?
Right.
Apart from these two, you also have to think about, uh, you know, giving the training to the end users so that they can start using the application.
Okay. Okay.
Correct?
So all that comes under cutover only.
Yes.
Okay. Understood. So it don't have any kind of fixed time or any kind of nothing is there. And again, it will have a good transparency as well, right?
Yes, of course. You are working very closely with the customer.
Yes.
There's no, you don't focus more on planning and requirements like the way we used to do it in the waterfall. You do some lightweight planning and requirements. Of course, you need to do that. But the key thing here will be to work closely with the customer and come up with the wireframes or prototype. And based on that, you write the code, right? And that's a iterative in an iterative fashion. So if the customer needs some changes, you'll make some changes to the code, I mean to the prototype, again show it to them and update the code. So it's a iterative in an iterative manner.
Right. Okay. Understood.
Okay. So that's a cutover phase. As I said, data migration, quality assurance or testing, uh, how to train the users so that they can start using the application. You
Hmm.
don't want to give them a new application on Monday morning and they don't know how to use it, right?
Right. Right.
So they need to know how to use it, must be comfortable using it, making them, comfortable, familiar with all the features, capabilities in the application.
Okay. I got it. Yes.
Okay. So that's about the RAD. Any question on that?
No. 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 It is clear. So, like in Circle, I mean, earlier framework we had a, continuous development, right?
Yeah,
In product. So here also we have same thing, but here we both things are happening simultaneously. Design,
correct. Yeah,
design and
right,
this development, everything. Okay.
right, right.
Earlier, we only used to collect the information of, designing, requirements only.
Correct.
And finally, after uh, customers confirmation, after getting
Hmm.
confirmation from customer, we used to stop the iterations
That's true.
and then we used to construct. I mean, we used to start development.
That's true.
Okay, that's what
Yeah.
the difference. Okay,
Yeah.
so this is quite good and user. I mean, good part, good for customer.
That's
And
yes, that's
yes,
correct.
time
Yeah,
and money saving also.
right. That's
Right.
correct.
Okay. I understood.
So, any other questions or doubts you have, before we move forward?
No, I don't have any doubts.
Okay, so let me go back here. Okay, so this is the RUP, which is Rational Unified Process.
Okay.
Okay, so RUP is again, it's a very, it was popular in late 90s, early 2000. Um, I know when I started working in IT in US 2003, 4, that
Mhm.
time it was like, you know, a very big thing, RUP. If you don't know RUP, you would not get a job. It was that big.
Oh, okay.
Uh, I'm talking about 2003 or 16 years back, right?
Mm.
Now nobody even talks about that framework.
Yeah. Nobody might
So
be knowing it also.
yeah, nobody. I mean, people who entered IT um,
Okay.
after that, after 2004, 5, they don't even know maybe this
Oh,
framework. But I know like a lot of times my trainees they are asked, "Hey, have you worked in RUP?" Even though those people don't know what RUP is, because nobody has worked in like 15 years on this. But anyway, we'll quickly go through it so that you understand what it is.
sure, sure.
Okay, so there are 4 phases: inception, elaboration, construction, and transition. Okay, and each column is a like you can see that it's a different phase,
Mm.
and the rows, there are 2 different categories. One is a core process workflow and then core supporting workflow. So in the core process workflow, we are putting all the functions uh, that would be done by the team members, like, requirements, design, development, testing, deployment. All these are functions that will be done across different phases. Okay. And then we have the supporting workflow, which includes a project management environment and configuration and change management. So there are 3 different supporting workflows and 6 core workflows. They call it workflows, but it's basically the functions within the SDLC which we do: requirements, design, development, testing, deployment. Okay. So the way you need to read this is uh, each phase, inception phase is where you start the project. Okay. This is mainly the pre-project phase. You want to determine the project feasibility. Is it feasible to do the project or should we just drop it? So you need to do those things, right? Yesterday I was talking about that. Before you start the project, you need to have certain things done. You need to do some research, you need to do some analysis and make sure that you know what exactly you're doing, how much time it's going to take, how much money it's going to cost
Mm.
us, what are the key benefits this project is going to give us. All that we need to know, right, before we start the project.
Right. Pre-work.
Yeah, right. We need to do some
Mm.
pre-project work before we start the project. Same thing here. In the inception phase, we are investing limited resources to understand the project's feasibility. And as you
Mm.
can see, in the inception phase, we are doing these functions. We are doing some modeling. We are doing requirements. You can see the hump here.
Mm.
The hump is kind of big, right? It's getting fat here. That means we are doing more of these, but less of design, development, testing, and deployment.
Oh, okay.
Okay? So the hump indicates the amount of work we are doing in each phase.
Okay, okay.
Okay? So in the inception phase,
it's all about doing some process modeling, doing some requirements, and make sure that we understand the high level requirements of the customers, what their business needs are, and capture it in a pictorial way so that we understand, what needs to be built. Okay. So the key goal of this phase is first, you need to understand the problem domain. Okay, let me share this. Right? So the key objective of this phase is to make sure that we understand the problem domain. Where exactly the problem is, what are the pain points, bottlenecks.
Mm-hmm.
So what we call the current state, if you, I think we talked about this term, current state as a state yesterday. So current state is the way things are being done in the current state, right?
Yesterday,
Or maybe
we,
I was talking to a different person. Sorry.
yes,
Confused.
we didn't
Yeah,
discuss it. Okay, fine, it
yeah.
happens.
See, current state is, let's say I'm talking about, let's say, uh, okay, what are you currently doing, right? If I ask you this, what will you say? You will tell me what you are currently into, right? You are getting trained, you are looking for a job, you are settling down in UK. These are the things you are doing in the current environment,
Right,
right? Your future state is you want to start working as a Scrum Master, project manager, product owner, right? You want to get a good job in UK, get settled, make some money, right? That's your
correct.
future state.
Yes.
So that is exactly what the current state and future state is.
Mm-hmm.
So on the project, when you go, we don't start working right away, right? We need to understand the current state before we start working on the future state.
Correct.
So when you go to a doctor, they don't just start giving you medicine, right? They first want to know some background, what happened, what was the, what is going on. They do some diagnosis and then they give you some medication,
Correct.
right? So what I'm trying to say is every time you go on a project, you need to have some basic understanding of the problem domain, what exactly is going on, the way things are being done in the current state. Okay?
Okay.
Then the focus will be on getting a good hold of the business level requirements, right? A technical requirement is how the system will help to implement that requirement,
Mm-hmm.
right? A business requirement is written from a business perspective. So for example, I will say that I'm coming from a business background, right? I don't have any technical knowledge.
Mm.
I will say that, hey, I want my customers to have their account safe.
Okay.
Okay. That is my business requirement. But a system level requirement will be written from a systems perspective. For
Correct.
example, one way to write that is the system shall allow a customer to enter their ID password. The
Yes.
system
Yes.
shall validate the ID password entered by the user. The system shall authenticate the ID password and if successfully authenticated, will let the customer access his or her account, right? The system
Yes.
shall prevent any unauthorized access to an account in the event that the ID password is not authenticated,
Mm-hmm.
right? The system will display the following message. It can be like, you entered incorrect ID password. Please check and re-enter it. So these are system level requirements. Okay. So what we are saying is first we need to have an understanding of the business level requirement because without understanding the business level requirement, you cannot write system level requirements. Correct?
Okay. Right. Right. Right.
Right. The next thing about this phase is you need to have a good understanding on the scope of the project. What exactly is included? What are we trying to achieve out of this project? And what is not included?
Okay.
Right? And overall, you need to have a vision of the product you're building or the solution you're building and come up with some initial estimates in terms of how much time it's going to take, how much money it's going to cost. So basically, it's more about a business case document.
Okay.
Okay, similar to what we talked about, you need to have a business case document and get it reviewed and approved by somebody,
Okay. So
right?
all these tasks we have to, I mean, all this information we have to collect in inception phase. All
Correct.
in,
Yes.
okay.
And
Okay.
at the end of the inception phase, there's an objective which you need to meet, and that is a life cycle objective. Basically, in very simple words, what they are saying is that is it feasible to do this project or should we cancel it?
Okay.
Okay, if it's feasible, then we go ahead with the next in the next phase. If not, then we just stop here.
But I think I mean, till now we have, this is our third framework which we are learning. So
Yeah,
in every framework we will require this, right? This is the basic necessity, no, for every framework. Then how
in the rapid application development, in what do you call the
and the
spiral.
spiral also we need that thing, no? Once we have it, and then only we can create.
No,
I
those,
mean,
okay, I see
space,
your question. In those
basic thing, no?
frameworks, no, in those frameworks, they assume that it's already done. Outside of that, okay,
Okay,
that phase is done, and then you do the spiral or rad.
okay, okay, okay.
But this framework, it includes within the
Everything.
phases. Yeah, within the
Start from
phase
start.
itself, they are saying we need to start from here.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, your question is valid that you need to do this no matter what. But in the rapid application development and spiral, they are doing it outside of those frameworks, and then we start the framework.
Got it. Okay.
And as I said, this is the first phase will or must meet this objective, life cycle objective. That means, should we invest money in this project or not? Is it feasible enough to do this project? Will it give us benefit? What is the cost we are going to have incurred, right? If this is, um, if this seems to be a viable project, then definitely we will go to the next phase. Otherwise, if this is not feasible, if this project doesn't seem to be feasible, then we will stop right here.
Okay. So it will again involve be a risk.
Uh, yes, everything is part of this phase. Yeah, they will
Okay.
also think about the risk. Okay, going forward, what are the risks involved? If the risk is too high, they may drop it, right? I mean, it depends on the management's uh, risk-taking ability, right? Somebody has to approve it, right? Some human being.
Hmm.
So if they are ready to take the risk, then we will go ahead. If not, then we have to stop right here.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
And as it's mentioned, the business analyst will be using a lot of modeling techniques during this phase, in the inception phase, because we are not getting into the system level requirements. We are more, you know, uh, kind of at a business level requirement. So you will be using, not you in terms of a Scrum Master, but as a BA, he or she will be using a lot of modeling techniques and tools to capture all the business level requirements.
Okay.
Yeah. So, any question on this?
No, no, I understood. Understood.
Okay.
So it is similar to pre-work, pre-project
Correct.
work,
Exactly.
which
Pre-project.
yesterday's
Exactly.
lecture
Yeah.
also in I
Yeah.
mean in yesterday's lecture
Agree.
also you in waterfall you explained me, no? So same kind of
Correct. Exactly. Same thing.
all information is same thing. Okay.
Yep.
Inception. Okay. Understood.
So I think what we can do is we can stop here and we can
Okay.
continue from the elaboration phase. Okay, next time
Okay.
when we
Sure.
meet,
Sure. Sure. Fine.
right? So
Okay.
let's meet sometime this week. I will update you maybe Tuesday or Wednesday we can meet.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. You just do let me know. I mean,
Yeah, I will ping you and like, confirm. Most likely Tuesday should be okay
yeah. Yeah.
because I don't have any meetings on Tuesday, so we can do on the lunch during the lunch time.
Okay. Okay.
Okay,
Sure. So,
but I will update you.
so it will be. I mean, at what time? Yeah, for you, it will be. It might be 3 or 4.
No, for 12 o'clock.
12 o'clock. For me, it is
Yeah,
4. Okay.
4,
Okay.
correct.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. I just okay. So, I mean, so can you share this today's
Yeah,
video also
I'll
with me
do that. I'll do that
so that
once.
I'll
Yeah,
start preparing for my own.
correct. I'll do that.
I will have self preparation for me. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
Fine.
Okay then.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, one more thing. Just to, I mean, wanted to. I mean, you have like you didn't tell me about yourself, like about your experience and all. Just wanted to know about
Oh, okay. So
that. We never
I
had
moved.
such introduction. We
Right,
directly.
right. No, sure. So uh, I came to US in 2003 to pursue my MBA, and since 2004, I'm working here in DC area, Washington DC. Uh, I started just like you are doing. I took some training. In those days, online was not very popular, right? 2003. So
Yes.
I used to go and read the books, buy books from Amazon, read books by myself, and I had some experience back in India with from the BA point of view, business analyst role,
Okay.
because
Okay.
I was not officially as a BA working as a BA, but I was involved in giving the requirements to the team, to the technical team. So I was working with the BAs there back in India
Okay. Okay. Okay.
because I was in a company called Dotsal in Bombay, and we were implementing an ERP. So I was responsible for giving them the requirements, what we need from the system, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
I was kind of involved in doing that kind of work, capturing the requirements, creating some models, all of that. So
Mm-hmm.
when I finished my MBA, somebody told me about, oh, hey, have you checked BA role, business analyst role? And I liked it. I started working as a BA, and since 2004 till now, I worked in different areas: business analyst,
Okay.
scrum master, project manager. Uh, so a lot of times I work as project manager and business analyst both.
Okay.
In my
So
current project, I'm a scrum master and a BA.
okay. Okay. Okay.
Okay, and
Right.
uh,
Understood.
yeah. So apart from that, what else? I've been
Fine.
training people since 2000 what 8, 9, but I was working with different companies back then. But since 2014, I'm just doing my own training. I don't work with any companies. I train under my company, and I've been training in the field of Scrum Master, Project Manager, Business Analyst, Business Process Management,
So you
all of
won't work
these.
now. I mean,
No,
now
no,
you
I do
won't work.
work.
Okay.
I'm a,
Fine.
I do work. Yeah, yeah. I'm a full-time employee of a company here.
Okay. 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 I thought you're only providing training and I mean outside training trainers are there. No?
No, I work. Yeah, I'm a
You work.
practitioner as well. So I work as a Scrum Master, BA, Project Manager. Yeah,
Okay. Okay. Okay.
and
So it
currently I'm
will.
based out of DC.
Okay. So you're staying in DC itself or
Yeah,
you're working?
no, no, I'm staying in DC as well.
So you got this. I mean, you might have got the green card. I mean,
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
okay, that is great. Okay, because it is very difficult to get a green card in USA, right?
Oh yeah, it's
And
taking a lot
it's
of
very
time.
it is very challenging actually.
Yep,
That's cool. Good. Okay,
yep.
I got it.
Okay.
Okay, okay, sure.
So yeah, let's meet one of these days, and I will update you.
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure. You just share
Yeah,
today's video also
I
with
will
me
share
so that I'll start
definitely.
my
Okay.
study. Okay. Thanks. Thank
Okay.
you very much, Chetan. Thanks
Yeah,
a lot.
welcome.
Okay.
Yeah, welcome. Bye.
Bye.